Hello, and welcome to episode 35 of the Nourish and Strengthen podcast. So, I had an idea for the next couple episodes that I want to do. I want to focus on and break down each phase of your fitness journey. So, I want to talk about how you approach it, when you know you're ready for it, what to expect from it, how you might feel like actually going through it, and just all the ins and outs that have to do with each and every phase of your journey. My head coach, Whitney, and I have been working really hard on a client roadmap for our Moxie clients over the last few months. So I want to break that down for you. Even if you're not a Moxie client, this will still outline the journey that you should be taking in your fitness goals because each phase is crucial and you really can't skip out on any of them if you want to be able to maintain the results that you see in your fat loss phase, because maintenance should be our ultimate goal, right? If you have a weight loss goal, the goal should not be just to take some great after pictures and then move on and gain the weight back. That should not be anyone's goal. That's horrible for your metabolism. It's horrible for, your confidence, your mindset, all the things, right? So really the ultimate goal should be long-term maintenance. Okay. So I want to walk through each of the stages and phases of our success roadmap. And the first stage, actually, let me give you a little overview first. So we've got habit creation is phase one. Okay. Then once you've got those habits dialed in, you can move on to phase two, which is achieving the goal. So a lot of our clients that we work with, their goal is fat loss. So then we work on that. Sometimes your goal is something different, but basically you've got to dial in those habits before you can work on reaching that goal. Okay. Once you reach the goal, if weight loss is the goal, you're going to move on to a reverse diet. And then you're going to move on to a maintenance phase or a lifestyle phase. So I want to break down each of those phases today and over the next episode or two. Okay. So first phase is habit creation. So I went over the 7 habits that we like to focus on in our elite coaching program in episode 30. So I'm going to outline those a little bit here, but if you want to know why each one of these is so important, I went into a lot more detail on every single one in episode 30. So I don't want to kind of rehash that here. If you didn't hear that one, I would recommend going back and listening to that one. Okay. But let me just kind of go over them. Our 7 habits that we like to really focus on dialing in this habit phase is tracking your food, getting at least 7 hours of sleep, getting at least 90 ounces of water, about 8 to 10,000 steps, spending 20 to 30 minutes of your day outside, if at all possible. I know it's cold right now where most of us are, and it's harder sometimes, but if possible, 5 minutes of daily meditation, and then 15 minutes a day of something you enjoy that is just for you. So getting consistent with these habits is crucial, you guys, before you start moving down a weight loss or dieting journey, okay? You don't necessarily have to hit all those targets. So maybe 8 to 10,000 steps seems like way hard for you and you're consistently getting 5 or 6. The fact that you are measuring it, you want to just be consistent with measuring it and monitoring it. Because you know the phrase, right? What gets measured gets managed. If we know how many steps you're taking, how much food you're eating, how much you're sleeping, how much you're drinking, we can manipulate that to help you see better results and slowly work on optimizing those numbers. But if we have no idea what you're doing, the first step is to figure that out. It's really hard to manipulate those things and move into a fat loss phase when you don't even know what you're doing there. Okay, so first step, habits. You really got to get consistent in paying attention to each of those metrics. Okay. Once you're consistent there and you know your food, your water, your steps, you're in a good stress reduction routine of getting outside daily, spending some time deep breathing, meditating, not running from thing to thing for other people, right? Your kids, your work, your spouse, your house, like you want to take some time for just you. Okay. Once you're in a good rhythm with all that stuff, then you're ready to move into a cut, diet, fat loss phase, whatever it is. When I use the word diet, you guys, just a tangent. When I use the word diet, I'm not talking about like the cabbage soup diet or HCG or whatever fad diet is popular right now. I'm using the word diet to refer to your nutritional intake, your food intake. Okay. So you might hear me say cut, fat loss phase, diet, all those mean that you are in a calorie deficit. So let's go into all the ins and outs of this second phase of your journey, and that is a fat loss phase for most people. Okay, we're gonna assume you have fat loss goals, or that's why you're listening to this episode. So how to know if you're ready? First thing, how to know if you're ready for a fat loss phase? 3 things. Number 1, you need consistency with those habits, okay? If you are never getting enough sleep, your food's all over the place, the first step is getting consistent with those things, okay? Number 2, how to know if you're ready. If you have not been in a calorie deficit for at least the last 4 months, preferably 6 months, then you're ready to move into a deficit. If you have spent the bulk of the last couple years dieting, you might need a break. Your metabolism and hormones might not have repaired enough from past dieting attempts to move into a successful deficit. So your body needs time outside of a calorie deficit in order for the calorie deficit to be successful. I talk to women all the time that are like, oh, I've eaten 1,200 calories for the last, 5 years. Well, how's that going for you? Oh, it's not. Like, I'm not seeing results from that anymore like I used to, right? Your body needs time outside of that deficit at maintenance, okay? Third way to know if you're ready is if you're just feeling good. You have good energy, your stress is lower, you feel ready to take it on, you're motivated, you're excited, then you're ready. If you're feeling exhausted and really overwhelmed with life, it might not be a good time to add a calorie deficit into the mix, okay? All right, so now let's say you've established that you're ready. You are ready to do a diet phase. So how do you do it? I'm going to talk you through that right now. So we're going to talk about macros, protein, lifting, and steps. Okay, 4 things specifically. So for your macros, okay, from your habit phase, you should know exactly the macros you're taking in because you tracked those during your habit phase, okay? So I want you to look at your typical calorie intake and drop them approximately 250 or so. This is going to be very different from person to person. That's why us coaches have jobs, because we have years and years and years of experience helping set these macros. But I'm just trying to give you a guideline of what to do without, obviously I don't know your situation, but just some general advice. It's just an idea. You just need to get yourself in a calorie deficit for weight loss, and you don't want to go into too steep of a deficit that your body's going to quickly adapt and then you don't have any wiggle room from there, okay? So if your macros are all over the place, you're trying to find that average, but you're like, oh my gosh, I was 1,000 and 2,000 and 2,500 and 1,400. You got to first get consistent, okay? So what I would do there was choose a target on the higher end of your calorie spread and start there. So if you were all over the place from 1,000 to 2,500, I'd maybe choose towards the top of that 1,800, 1,900 and get consistent there before dropping. Okay. Now let's talk about protein. Protein you want at about 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of your current body weight, okay? Current body weight. In past episodes, actually last week's episode, we did 25 ways to boost your protein during your day. And the week before, episode 34 was 25 ways to boost your protein intake. And episode 33, I talked about the importance of protein and how to make sure you're getting enough in and how to set that and why it's so important. So if you want more info on protein, go listen to episode 33 and 34. Third thing, you need a solid lifting plan. So even if you don't want to, quote unquote, be a bodybuilder or build a lot of muscle, you say you just want to lose 10, 20, 30 pounds, okay? Even more than that, okay? You have to have a solid lifting plan. This is absolutely crucial for changing your body. When you move into a calorie deficit, it's going to be super easy for your body to let go of lean body mass. It's the most metabolically active tissue in your body. And it's hard to maintain when you're in a calorie deficit. And so 2 things can help protect that lean body mass: your protein intake and your lifting, okay? So I don't mean just going into the gym and throwing little weights around and chatting with your friend the whole time. You have to push yourself, bring the intensity, and have a solid periodized program, okay? In episode 33, I do go over more about what that means to have a periodized program and why that's so important. But just keep in mind, you have to lift, you have to push yourself hard, and you have to do a program consistently Over time, anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks of consistency on the same program is great because you want to be able to see yourself progressing in the lifts, in the movements, in the series of exercises that make up your workout. That's how you know you're getting stronger. If you go into the gym or you go into your workout and you're doing different things every single week, you can't really measure that progress. Okay. Next, let's talk about steps. So we want to bump them up from where you're currently at. Okay. I like to use steps as cardio in the beginning and not add specific cardio sessions until we need to. So steps, if your average is 6, I would try to get 8. If your average is 8 to 9, I would try to get 10 to 11. So wherever you're at, just bump them up a bit. Remember, we're moving into a calorie deficit. We're using that day-to-day movement as part of your calorie deficit. Okay. Then you have your plan. You're going to stick to that for 2 to 3 weeks before making any adjustments at all. Okay. So let's go into how to track your progress. So tracking your progress is key. If you're doing a fat loss phase, you want to make sure you choose a check-in day. Okay. If you're working with a coach on my team, you'll have a check-in day assigned to you, or you can figure that out with your coach. If you're not working with a coach, choose a day for yourself that you're going to check in. Okay. On that day, you're going to do pictures, you're going to do weight, you're going to do measurements. We do all 3 of those because progress in any one of those is a win. Sometimes you'll lose inches and not weight, or the other way around, or sometimes you won't see any change in your numbers, but your pictures will change. All of that is amazing, amazing progress. Okay. So if after 2 to 3 weeks of consistency, you're not seeing changes anywhere in any of those things, you're not seeing changes in your physique, in your pictures, you're not noticing changes in the mirror when you're working out, or seeing it in the measurements or your weight, here's what you're going to do. Okay. I want you to do one of 2 things. Either drop about 100 calories, or you can increase your steps or add cardio. Okay. Keep in mind, you only want to do this if you've been super consistent. It is so, so important, you guys, to eat as high of calories as you can while still seeing the results you want, because your body's going to adjust to whatever you're doing. Okay. So you always have to make sure, especially in the beginning, that you have room to continue to manipulate things, to drop calories if you need to add more steps or cardio. Obviously, you won't have that room forever, but you want to make sure, especially in the beginning, you're making changes only when you need to, and you're just making small changes. Okay. The reason why we give it, 2 to 3 weeks or so is because as women, we have lots of hormonal things going on, right? It's super common for women to gain a couple pounds around their period or around ovulating. So whenever you have a week where nothing changes, you don't want to get too hasty. Don't make changes yet. Wait another week or 2. Okay. Now I want to talk about something that might be a little controversial, but this is how often to weigh yourself. Okay, we got 3 options, right? Never. One extreme, not extreme, but one part of the spectrum is never weigh yourself. One is a weekly weigh-in, and the other is a daily weigh-in. Now you might freak out about that one, but hear me out. Let me explain. So let's talk about the pros and cons of each. Never weighing yourself. If you feel like, you don't have a good relationship with your scale and it just kind of freaks you out and you hate to see that number, it's totally fine to not weigh yourself, 100%. But I would ask yourself, why do you have that relationship with the scale? Why does that number have control over you? I would definitely work to heal that, because that's something that, there's some sort of trauma there, whether it's come from past weight gain that makes you scared, like whatever it is, I would work on working through that. Okay. Now you'll notice, so if you're not weighing yourself, you're going to be reliant on pictures and measurements, right? You might notice progress a little bit slower just because you are taking out one way of tracking the progress. Okay. So just stay patient. Totally fine. Okay. Now let's talk about weekly weigh-ins. This is fine as well. And it's great for you if you don't want to see the number on the scale very much, or if you just feel like you just don't really care, that's totally fine as well. Here's the downside of a weekly weigh-in. Okay. Your weight is going to fluctuate. Totally normal. It always fluctuates for a huge variety of reasons. That's not the point of the podcast. I could do another episode on weight fluctuations and why and how and all the stuff. But if you're just checking your weight on, let's say, every Friday morning, let's just say you were 160 on a Friday, okay, and your goal was weight loss. Let's say you had a perfect week, your weight was trending down, it was 159, then 158, then 160, then 158 again, and then 160.5. And let's say you checked on the day that said 160.5, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I tried so hard this week. I was so perfect. I did everything exactly like I was supposed to, and I gained a half a pound. That can feel devastating, right? But had you been watching those fluctuations, you would have seen that your weight was actually trending down, and it was just on a very normal, very natural upward fluctuation when you happen to look. Okay. So that is one way that weekly weigh-ins can kind of mess with your mind. Okay. So let's go into daily. And before you freak out, you don't have to do this. We don't make our clients do this, but I have actually seen daily weigh-ins heal people's relationship with the scale, because it takes away that fear of what's the number going to say, because you start looking at it more often and you realize it's just a number. You realize it doesn't mean anything. It's just one method of progress, and does not mean you're failing, does not mean you're succeeding. It's just a number. And it helps you see those fluctuations and recognize them for what they are, because you know deep down you're staying on track. And so you'll watch the scale go up and down and up and down, and you realize, oh, this actually is normal. Everything they say about fluctuations is right, and it's totally normal, and there's nothing I can do to avoid it. And so it can actually help your relationship with the scale. So what I like to do for people, myself, this is what I do for myself, and also for clients that are mentally healthy relationship with the scale, is check it daily and take an average. So let's say with that 160-pound example, let's say one week you were 160, 161, 159, 161, right around there. And the next week you're 160, 159, 158, 160. You can see it's trending down, but you might only be checking it on those days it says 160 and feeling like you're not making progress, right? But if you can take that average, you'll see the average dropping week over week. Okay, so that's my little rant on how often to weigh yourself and why, of course, you make the decision that you feel is best for you. Okay. Now let's go into the bulk of this that I wanted to talk through. And this is what to expect when you're expecting. Just kidding. Just kidding. I just had to. We're not talking about pregnancy. We're talking about what to expect when you're dieting. But really though, do you guys remember that book, or am I just way too old? I'm sure it's not around anymore, because now they have apps that are like, you're 20 weeks and your little baby is a melon, a cantaloupe. And I'm just like, I just over here had this what to expect when you're expecting book. Anyway, if you're over 40, you know what I'm talking about. What to expect when you're dieting. Okay. I have got eight tips for what to expect. This is to keep your expectations in check so that you can manage your mind around your diet phase, which is huge. Okay. Number one, expect some hunger. Yes, I said it. You might not be hungry in the beginning, but it's a given at some point in your deficit. So what I want you to do is work on your feelings around hunger. I talk to so many people, they get so wound up in their head about, but I'm hungry, but it's bad, but it's whatever, I have all these strong emotions about being hungry. It just is what it is. It's not bad. It just is. Okay. So here's some ways to manage your hunger. If you're eating in a calorie deficit, that means you're eating less than your body needs, right? On purpose. So you're going to be a little hungry, normal. Ways to manage that hunger. Number one, high volume foods. Okay. So what does that mean? That means foods that are bigger in volume for lower calories. So examples, vegetables, fruits, a big salad with protein and maybe some apple, like things like that would be high volume foods. In contrast, low volume foods would be something like nuts, peanut butter. These are higher calorie for a smaller amount of food. Okay, so if you're hungry, I would opt for more higher volume foods. Another thing is to opt for more whole foods. If you notice you're hungry a lot and you're having more, protein bars, shakes, nuts, beef jerky, like you're grabbing for those kind of foods, I would opt, granted nuts and jerky are whole foods, but I would opt for transitioning more to whole foods, which are naturally going to be higher volume. Okay. Another tip to try is try having bigger meals spaced farther apart, as opposed to just eating tiny little bird food meals all day long. So you're going to find that you're never really truly getting satisfied. You're never truly getting full from your food. Okay. Another tip to keep in mind is just to realize that hunger is a wave and it will pass. Okay. It comes and it goes just like the waves in the ocean. And so what you can do is think through, okay, what am I going to do when that wave comes? Some ideas are, well, get out of the kitchen. Maybe you can visualize yourself at your goals. Maybe you can meditate, get busy doing something else, go for a walk, go outside. All of these things can help you ride that wave. Maybe drink 2 big cups of water, can help you ride that wave. And then that time will come when the hunger passes. Okay. So you're going to be hungry. It's normal. Just try to manage your feelings and thoughts around that. Okay. Number 2, expect to make some changes to what you're currently doing. Sometimes that's hard for people to expect, you guys. They don't have to be big changes, but continue to do what you're doing, you're going to get what you've gotten, right? That phrase. And so you're going to have to make some changes if you want to see some changes. Okay. And I would honestly, embrace the changes that feel hardest for you. The ones that are going to push you the most are the ones that are going to benefit you the most. And so if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't add more steps. I can't. There's no way. I challenge you to do it because you can. And we have helped so many clients who have said, there's no way I can get over 3,000 steps. And by the time they're done working with us, they're hitting 10 easily. And they're like, that made the biggest difference in my life, in my progress. So the key is expect to make some changes, and the changes that are hardest are going to be the most beneficial for you. Okay. Number 3, you might need to modify eating out a little bit. Okay. If you eat out a lot, you might want to cut that back a bit. I'm not saying you have to cut it out completely, but if you're eating out multiple times a week, can you cut that back to once or twice? Keep in mind, it's very normal and healthy to have one meal a week where you're not tracking it. I would totally do that eating out at a restaurant if you like eating out. One tip here is, please do not skip out on social situations. That is not a long-term strategy, you guys. You have to find other ways to handle situations when it comes to food and drink, okay? Skipping out on experiences is something that's going to make you burn out real quick. And the other thing is, when you reach your goal and you go back to your social situations and having those experiences, you're going to revert back to the behaviors you did before from your life before that made you gain the weight, right? So it's crucial to continue to have those experiences, but to figure out different ways to manage your food and drink. Okay. We work with clients on this in coaching all the time. Okay. Because I can't really give too much advice here because it really depends on you and what's important to you to keep in, to cut out, to modify, that kind of thing. Okay. Number 4, expect to focus extra hard on your habits. In maintenance, you can be a little more flexible with things. You can kind of, hopefully you've made some really great habits that move from your fat loss phase into your maintenance period. But in your fat loss phase, you don't have a lot of wiggle room. Okay. So you want to focus really hard on your sleep, your water, your steps, your food, your mindset, your stress levels, all the things. So just expect to, take a period of time that you're designating for your fat loss phase and just really focus hard on those habits. Okay. Number 5 and 6, actually, we're going to talk about results. Expect your progress to not be linear. Okay. You're going to have weeks where you lose and weeks where you don't. It all evens out in the end. So it's not going to be a straight line from the top down to the bottom. It's going to be jagged and wiggly. Okay. It's going to go up and down, but you should still be able to take a straight line and cross it through the middle of all of those fluctuations. Okay. So if you know that some weeks you're going to see results and some weeks you just are not, and that is normal, if you expect that, you're going to have a much better attitude, and it's going to be so much easier to stay patient and consistent. Okay. And number 6, don't expect your results to be instant. For most people, it takes some time. You've probably all heard the saying that's like, I can't remember exactly what it is, but for the first 3 weeks, you don't notice a difference. And then the next 3 weeks, you feel the difference. And the following 3 weeks, other people notice the difference, or whatever. I totally just botched that quote, but it's totally applicable. The first few weeks, you're just putting in the reps, putting in the habits. You're kind of wondering, like, is this even working? I don't even know. And then you're going to start feeling different. And then you're going to start seeing results. And then those results are going to compound, and other people will start to notice the changes and be like, hey, Sally, what are you doing? And you've been working at this for, 2-3 months already, but it's finally just becoming apparent. Okay. So results are not instant. You got to stay patient. It's key. Number 7, what to expect when you're dieting. You need to listen to your body, okay? Make sure you're listening to your body more. You're gonna be in a calorie deficit, so you wanna pay attention to your energy levels and listen to your body when it comes to, pushing through, fatigue, soreness, that kind of thing. If you're working with a coach, definitely express that to your coach. Your coach can help you decide, when it's appropriate to skip, when it's appropriate to push. You have a lot less wiggle room, okay? So planning is key here, and listening to your body, okay? And the last one I want to talk through is willpower, okay? Expect some willpower fatigue. What does that mean? So Harvard released a series of studies a while back that tell us that willpower, it's not an infinite resource, okay? It's kind of comparable to like a tank of gas. The more willpower we have to use throughout the day, the more it becomes drained, okay? So during a diet phase, we are probably going to have to exercise a little bit more willpower than in a maintenance phase. Okay, you might have to skip out on sleeping in for your workout. You might have to skip out on your glass of wine occasionally. You might have to skip out on eating out as often or on richer foods as often. And so expect that willpower muscle to get a little bit tired. So with some things that you can do to help that is get rid of any food in your house that's a temptation. If it's not there, you don't have to make that decision. The fewer decisions you can make, the better, okay? And that's why planning is so key, because if you're planning your food in advance, you're technically making that decision in advance of what you're gonna eat. Then the next day comes, you don't have those food decisions to make because you already made them. That's why planning in advance is so, so important, okay? And understand that by the evening, your willpower might be kind of maxed out. And that's when a lot of people, according to studies, there's been research on this, guys, that's when a lot of people go off track because their willpower is maxed out. So how many decisions can you make in advance? How many ways can you take the decision away by taking away that food that's a temptation, or by making things easier? Okay, for example, quick example here. I have a walking pad. Love my walking pad. I like to use it when I'm using my computer. But, and this is going to sound silly, but I found myself not using it as much because in order to use it, I had to move my desk chair, I had to move my keyboard, I had to extend my laptop stand, and then push my walking pad under my desk. Now you might be thinking like, Trainer Lindsay, that's ridiculous. Like, you just do it. It's not a big deal. But it was standing in the way of me using it as much. So I was like, okay, what can I do to make this easier? What can I do so I don't have to actually use willpower to use my walking pad? So what I did was I leave it open, out, facing a window. And I use it so much more often because I don't have to get it under my computer. I just use it when I'm using my phone, or I use it when I'm talking to somebody, instead of using it when I'm actually working on my computer. And I use it 4 times more than I used to. Actually is about 4 times more because I usually jump on it for 10, 12 minutes about 4 times a day. So thinking about things with your willpower, how can I make this easier? How can I make it so I don't have to use willpower to do the thing? Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. What to expect when you're not expecting, but when you're dieting. Next thing is how to know when you're done. So one way is you've reached your goal. Yay, you've reached your goal, you're done. Number 2 is mentally you need a break. You're like, I am so sick of this. I am sick of tracking so much. I'm sick of paying so much close attention to all these things. I'm over it. Number 3, to know when you're done, is it's been a long time. Maybe it's been 4, 5, 6 months or more, and your progress has slowed, your biofeedback is off. Your body is just saying, I need a break. I need to be at maintenance for a bit. So sometimes too, when you have a bigger weight loss goal, like, 40, 50 pounds or more, it's better to actually break that into smaller chunks and do a fat loss phase and a maintenance phase. When I lost, 30 to 40 pounds a few years ago, I broke it into 3 phases, and I lost about 10 to 12 pounds each phase. And then I did about 4 to 6 months at maintenance in between each phase. And the weight has stayed off. And I truly believe it stayed off so easily because of the way I approached the weight loss. So that's how to know when you're done. What to do when you're done, we're gonna talk about next week, okay? We're gonna talk about the reverse diet, what that is. Basically, that's just getting your calories up to maintenance, and it's crucial. You can't keep calories low forever. You can't stay in a deficit or at low calories like that, okay? It's horrible for your hormones. It's gonna set you up for better success in future dieting phases. It'll help you maintain your weight easier if your calories are higher. It's gonna help your immune system. There's so many benefits to getting calories back up to maintenance and not keeping them low forever. So that's what we're going into next week, how to do that, what to expect, how to start, how to know when you're done, all the things. So hopefully this was helpful for you, you guys. If it was, go ahead and leave me a review. I'd love to hear it. We are finishing up our $100 cash giveaway for reviews left. So do that. We got one more week of that and I will choose a winner. Okay, guys, hope you have a wonderful week and I will see you guys next week.